Welcome along to the Deep Dive. This is Complete Aviation Solutions Deep Dive number 93.
Great to be here.
Today, we're diving into some really significant strategic moves happening right now, things shaking up the global commercial aviation industry.
Yeah, we've gathered material covering some key developments, looking at airlines, manufacturers across different big regions.
And the plan for this deep dive, we want to sort of cut through the noise a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Distill the key facts, the implications from all this information, basically help you understand how some of the big players are expanding their reach, their capabilities.
Getting that informed view without having to sift through everything yourself.
That's the idea.
Okay, so let's kick off with a pretty major decision. It's coming from India's largest airline. Made some serious waves back in June 2025.
Oh, absolutely. A huge move. They exercised an option for 30 additional wide-body A350-900s.
30 more on top of what they already had.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it such a statement. It effectively doubles their initial wide-body commitment for this specific plane. They went from 30 to 60 A350-900s just like that.
Wow. Doubling an order like that, I mean, that's not tinkering around the edges. It really says something about where they're headed.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And the material spells out the reasoning pretty clearly.
Mm-hmm.
They are aiming, quite deliberately, to grab a significant share of the outbound long-haul market from India.
And that's a market that, well, historically hasn't really been dominated by Indian carriers, has it?
Not at all. For a long time, if you were flying long-haul out of India, chances are you were on a Gulf carrier or maybe one from Southeast Asia. They built these huge hubs, great connections, especially to Europe and North America.
So for an Indian airline to say, right, we want a big piece of that, that's them looking to, well, fundamentally change the game.
It's a direct challenge. And, you know, when you look at this airline's sheer scale, their history, you see they might just have the muscle to do it.
Yeah, the data we looked at, covering 2011 to 2024, it's pretty striking.
It really is. The material shows they were the single largest buyer of commercial aircraft in the entire Asia-Pacific region during that time.
The largest buyer?
Yep, ordering something like 1,300 aircraft. Just think about that number.
1,300, that's huge.
It's enormous. And to give it some context, the material points out that figure represents nearly a quarter, almost 25%, of all the orders one specific major manufacturer got from the whole Asia-Pacific region in those years.
So they're a massive player in fleet decisions already.
Undeniably. And this latest A350 order, the wide-body one, it positions them quite specifically within India itself.
So?
Well, it makes them the biggest customer in India for this particular wide-body type.
Mm-hmm.
The material mentions they've actually overtaken another major Indian carrier, which currently has 50 of the same plane on order.
Okay, so they're really planting their flag as the leader in India's wide-body long-haul future.
That's exactly how the sources frame it.
Yeah.
It reaffirms this long-term strategy, this ambition to become a truly formidable global player.
Which is a big pivot, isn't it, from their roots?
A massive pivot. I mean, for years, everyone knew them as the dominant low-cost carrier within India. Domestic flights, mostly. Now they're signaling very clearly, we're serious about full-service long-haul, competing directly with the established international names.
Okay, but just ordering planes isn't enough, is it? To make that kind of shift work, you need the whole package. How are they supporting this move?
Right, good question. It's definitely a multi-pronged approach. First, obviously, is the fleet itself, getting these modern wide bodies like the A350s. But the material also notes they're using leased Boeing 777-300ERs too.
To get capacity up faster, presumably.
Exactly. Build up the long-haul operation more quickly while waiting for all the new A350s. And then there's the other crucial piece, partnerships.
Ah, the network side. They're expanding internationally through alliances and code shares.
Precisely. The material highlights this growing web of international code share agreements. They've signed deals with some really big names. Air France, KLM, Delta Airlines, Virgin Atlantic.
Those aren't small partners.
Not at all. And these aren't just, paper agreements. They're designed to provide real network depth, real customer access.
Meaning passengers get more seamless connections, like flying from, say, the U.S. to India via Europe, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It connects everyone's networks. So passengers on those partner airlines get easier access to India's huge domestic market via this airline's network.
And in return,
this Indian carrier gets access, valuable access, to key long-haul markets like Europe and North America through their partners' established routes. It's symbiotic.
And you can already see the effect in the Indian market itself.
Yeah, the material points out that until fairly recently, there was really only one other major Indian airline doing wide-body long-haul at any serious scale.
So this airline jumping in creates real competition.
It does. They're emerging fast as the second big Indian player in the international wide-body space, and that's good for India's overall aviation competitiveness. It challenges that historical dominance by foreign carriers.
And for travelers like you listening, it probably means more choice, potentially better fares on international routes to and from India.
That's usually how increased competition plays out, yes.
There was also something about the plane choice itself, the A350s, something about efficiency.
Ah, yes, a key detail. The specific engines powering these A350s, the material highlights their efficiency.
How efficient are we talking?
About 25% less fuel burn compared to older generation wide bodies. That's significant.
25%. That's not just an environmental point. That's got to impact the bottom line.
Hugely. Lower fuel burn means lower operating costs per flight. That gives them a real cost advantage, allowing them to potentially price more aggressively on these long routes. It puts pressure on the legacy carriers, maybe flying older, thirstier jets on the same routes. It's a competitive tool.
Fascinating stuff. A really bold strategy from them. Okay, let's switch gears now, move across to another major story brewing, this one involving China and potentially, well, huge aircraft orders.
Yes, this one's still in the reports suggest category, not confirmed, but the implications are massive if it happens.
What are the reports saying?
Basically that China might use an upcoming summit with European leaders, scheduled for July, as a sort of stage, a platform to announce a very large aircraft order with one of the big manufacturers.
Okay, and how large is very large in this context?
Well, the sources, citing people apparently familiar with the discussions, are talking numbers like up to 500 aircraft.
500.
500. And importantly, a mix narrow bodies and wide bodies.
Wow. Okay, put 500 in perspective for us. How does that compare to China's current orders?
Right now, Chinese airlines combined have about 323 aircraft on order from one of the major manufacturers
Okay.
and from the other big manufacturer. Only about 139 on order. And the material adds a crucial point here. That second manufacturer hasn't actually received what you'd call a sizable order from any Chinese airline since way back in 2017.
So a 500 aircraft order for the first manufacturer would be monumental.
Absolutely monumental. If you look back, China's biggest disclosed deal with that specific manufacturer was in July 2022. That was for 292 aircraft of one family type, split across 4 airlines.
So 500 would blow that out of the water?
Completely. It would dwarf it. And it could rank among the biggest single aircraft deals ever placed anywhere in the world.
Incredible numbers. Now, the reports do say these talks are still sort of fluid, not finalized.
Correct. It's not a done deal. But there are signs. Like China's vice premier recently visited France and met the CEO of one of the manufacturers. High-level meetings like that often precede big announcements.
And there's a geopolitical angle mentioned, too.
Yes, the material definitely touches on that. It suggests that a massive order for one manufacturer would inevitably be seen as a blow to the other one.
The one that hasn't had a big Chinese order since 2017.
Exactly. That manufacturer is described in the sources as having been something of a casualty of ongoing trade tensions in recent years.
So the implication is governments might use these massive aircraft deals as a kind of diplomatic or trade lever.
That's certainly the dynamic the material points towards. These aren't just commercial deals. They're multi-billion-dollar contracts affecting jobs, economies.
In the context of tricky international relations, yeah, they can become political tools.
Makes sense.
And it's also typical of the Chinese market, as the sources mention, that airlines often keep orders quiet. Sometimes the customer isn't even named publicly until the planes actually start getting delivered years down the line.
So we might hear about a huge order, but not necessarily know which specific airlines are getting the planes right away.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Really interesting how commerce and international relations get intertwined there. Okay, so we've looked at fleet strategy, potential mega orders. Let's turn to another key growth strategy, partnerships. And we're focusing on a major airline based in Turkey for this one.
Right. This carrier is a really good example of how airlines use partnerships, specifically code shares, to extend their reach way beyond where their own planes fly.
Maybe just quickly explain code sharing again. Sure. Basically, 2 airlines agree to put their flight numbers, their codes, on each other's flights. So Airline A can sell you a seat on an Airline B flight as if it were their own. It lets them create this much larger virtual network.
Got it. And this Turkish carrier has been busy expanding these agreements.
Very busy. They've recently expanded one with a European carrier, That partnership actually started back in June 2023, but now they're taking it further.
How so?
Well, the European partner is actually launching its own direct flights between its main hub city and Istanbul. That starts September 2025, running twice a week in the winter.
Okay, new flights. And they'll be part of the code share.
Yep, the Turkish airline will put its note on those new flights operated by the European partner.
And what does the European airline get in return?
They get to put their code on selected flights operated by the Turkish carrier beyond Istanbul. We're talking destinations across Asia, the Middle East, Africa,
Mhm.
places the Turkish carrier has a really strong network into.
Ah, so it connects the dots. The European Airlines transatlantic routes connect into the Turkish Airlines' huge eastward network via Istanbul.
Exactly that. It creates these new pathways, new traffic flows, connecting Europe and the Americas with Asia, the Middle East, Africa, much more easily for passengers.
Makes sense. And that wasn't the only partnership they expanded.
No, they also deepened an existing code share they had with another European carrier.
Okay, broadening the options even further. What kind of destinations did that bring into the mix?
This expansion added destinations in, let's see, South America, North Africa, and some in the Indian Ocean region. Plus, the material mentions they added two popular summer spots in Turkey itself, Dalaman and Bodrum, to the agreement.
Easier access to Turkish holiday spots for people flying with that European partner then.
Right. And the stated benefits for this second expansion are similar. More flexibility for travelers, a wider range of options. It's also framed as helping develop commercial and tourism ties.
And helping the European carrier reach points further east.
Exactly. Leveraging the Turkish partners network again.
And it's interesting, the material notes both these expanded deals were announced around the same time at a big industry meeting in New Delhi recently.
Yeah, it highlights how these network strategies are constantly being worked on, often announced at these global gatherings.
So if we tie these threads together, what we're seeing are different ways airlines are pushing to grow internationally, right?
Absolutely. You've got Indigo making this huge bet on its own long-haul future with massive fleet investment. You've got the potential China order, which is more about scale and maybe some geopolitical chess playing. And then you've got the Turkish carrier really focusing on weaving an ever wider web through smart partnerships, different methods, same goal, compete and grow globally.
So let's bring it back to you, the listener. Why does all this matter? Whether you travel a lot or just occasionally.
Well, these big moves can have very real effects. Indigo pushing into long haul could mean brand new direct flights from India you didn't have before, or just more competition driving down prices on existing routes. The potential China order, while maybe less direct for your immediate booking, shapes the whole industry. It affects which planes airlines fly, their costs, which ultimately influences routes and fares down the line globally.
Right.
And the partnerships, like the Turkish ones, they directly mean more places you can book easily on one ticket, maybe smoother connections, just more choice when you're looking at flying to Asia, Africa, the Middle East, even parts of the Americas potentially.
Yeah.
It opens up the map.
So it's this constant shifting landscape, airlines making these big strategic plays that ultimately shape our travel options.
Exactly. Driven by strategy, market chances, and yeah, sometimes those bigger geopolitical factors too. They're positioning themselves for the next decade, not just next year.
Okay, so to quickly recap this deep dive, we looked at India's largest airline, Indigo, making that really significant move into long haul, doubling down on the A350 order.
We unpacked the reports about a potentially enormous aircraft order coming out of China and the context surrounding that.
And we explored how a major carrier based in Turkey is using expanded codeshare partnerships as a key tool to widen its global network reach.
All pieces showing how the global aviation map is constantly evolving.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with today. As you hear about these huge investments, these complex partnerships being made now,
Yeah, think about how these decisions might fundamentally redraw the lines of international travel over the next few years.
could they open up entirely new travel possibilities for you? Change the way we think about getting from A to B. The strategies playing out right now are literally building the flight paths of tomorrow.